Hello, folks. Welcome back to Rhetoric 306 at the University of Texas. It is still me, Dr. Jennifer Sapio, and I am really happy to see you back in class. It is week 4 of our asynchronous course, and we are moving into drafting our first essay for the course this week. So let's go ahead and move right into the material. Without further ado, we have slowly been taking steps along the way so far this semester. Here, I'm trying not to cover the words, but okay, here. First, we'll look at number 1. So we have been taking steps throughout the semester, little bit at a time, in this scaffolded writing process where we have looked at first, just one of the documents from the document set, which again is online on the Canvas course website under modules, and then Unit 1, you'll see that Project 1 document set. So you first looked at it way back in week 1 when you posted on the discussion board about the communicator, the message, and the audience. Then for homework 1.1, you took a further step analyzing the ethical, logical, and pathetic or emotional appeals evident in one of those sources. And then for homework 1.2, you found an additional source, which you all turned in today for last week. So now you have a total of 5 sources. The 4 that were provided, the articles from the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Midland Reporter Telegram, and the Austin American Statesman. And you have all of these different perspectives about water quality in the Austin area and in the United States more broadly. And so now we're moving into creating that report, writing up what you've discovered, trying to communicate and express this information in as clear and comprehensive a way as possible. So today, now I'll show you step 2, we're going to be looking at an example paper, an example report on a different topic, but we're going to take a look at how that arrangement and the format works in the piece to use potentially as a model for you all in drafting yourselves this week. Okay, so I've navigated our way over to the Canvas course website, and we're on the landing page here, and I'm going to click on the modules tab, and here's where you found the weekly video, which isn't posted because I'm recording it as we speak. You've got your ebook and your first unit. So let's remind ourselves here of the project assignment first, and then we'll move into the sample paper in short order. So for project 1, you are, as we've been discussing, analyzing the rhetorical situation in a set of these 4 texts and the 5th that you identified last week for homework 1.2. That 5th text addressed missing or excluded perspectives on the topic, or critiqued the way the controversy is handled, or critique current proposals. In any case, add something new to this portrait of the issue of water quality that you're painting in our report here. So this breakdown of the outline bullet points is the best way that we can kind of summarize for you what this Project 1 report is. So I wanted to direct your attention here. Again, I know you see this on your Canvas course website, but I wanted to direct your attention again during this lecture time to be really as clear as possible that here is your Project 1 report assignment. You are going to have a descriptive title identifying the controversy for us. Don't just say report on water quality, okay? Think of a unique, creative way to identify what you're going to talk about in this piece. Then you're going to have, I think of it as kind of a two-part. One section that talks holistically about all of the texts in your document set, themes that come up for you. It's basically a synthesis section where we're asking you to look at what people are arguing about, who are the various stakeholders, what is the context here. You know, think back through that slide from last time about mapping the controversy. Talk to us about the geographic context, the historical context, important events, figures. If you're trying to explain this issue of water quality to someone who hasn't read the pieces that you've read, right? How would you most comprehensively explain to them what's going on? Are there important dates? You know, the EPA report, for example, are there things that your audience needs to know? And that's what you're going to be developing that first kind of part of the Project One report about. Then you'll notice the next section focuses in on just one of those texts from your document set. And to review, you might want to go back and check out chapters 1 and 2 from our textbook, Becoming Rhetorical, edited by Mikotra, to help guide you through the analysis of exigence and context of that particular piece, its purpose, and the way the author uses rhetorical appeals of logos, pathos, and ethos. Okay, so this, again, just to be extremely clear, is your Project One report assignment. Now, let's go and take a look at that example Project One report. It's going to be on a different topic, but you'll get a sense of the arrangement of the flow of the organization of the piece from beginning to end. So let's go check that out. Okay, I've navigated back to modules, and now when you scroll down in Unit 1, you're going to see a link for the Project One example. If you go ahead and click through to open Project One example in a new window, you are going to see this Google document with a sample student report. This sample paper is about making campus buildings accessible by our friend here, Sadie Student. And let's go ahead and look through, just skimming through here on the screen, the organization and the formatting of the piece. And I'll give you all the time on your own to actually read through the text. But it gives you a sense here. We've got title, we've got some paragraphing. In this report, I analyzed the set of Project One texts, which together discuss how to improve campus to make it more accessible for all students and faculty. Again, a different topic, but just an introduction of the issue here and an intention of what this report is going to entail. So an analysis of the Project One text as a whole, and then the student says, I closely examine a single text in terms of rhetorical appeals. So that's about as kind of direct and basic as it can get. You're free to, elaborate or amplify on that stylistically, but as far as content, that is the minimum of what is required here. Then the student goes into talking about how the sources agree. The sources agree that campus buildings should be more accessible, but they disagree on how best to make this happen. And then we're starting to see the terrain, if you will, in that metaphor about mapping, right? That cartographic metaphor, if you will. We're seeing the student here start to analyze where the sources start to differ. They're differentiating, distinguishing one group from the next. So the student says one group with these three authors in parentheses describes negative experiences for people who need more mobile accessibility on campus. And then I'm expecting to see later on, which I do see, however, a second group argues that compliance in this case with the ADA isn't enough because compliance sometimes falls short of true accessibility, and we have the MLA parenthetical documentation there of the author's last name. So we, again, and I'm not reading all of this word for word, you have this on your campus under modules, but I'm just kind of outlining for you to get a sense of, oh, I see how you might imitate and model this piece and adapt it for your own water quality controversy. Okay, continuing to scroll through, we see, again, the most basic kind of transition language and topic sentences. You can imitate this as a minimum or flourish, stylistically as you would like to challenge yourself. The author here says some of the texts relate to each other directly through links. And so then we have a body paragraph about some of the linkages between the pieces. If one source, for example, quotes another or links to a similar report as another, which is the case in our document set as well, you might want to note that. This student says others relate to each other indirectly by covering some of the same material. So perhaps you are, you have been keeping notes of your document set as you've been reading. And if you haven't, that's a good pre-writing or planning part of the writing process, which we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. So perhaps going back through and taking notes, rereading the New Yorker article, the New York Times, Austin American Statesman, and the Midland Reporter Telegram, to remind yourself, where are those linkages? What are the common topics? Where do they differentiate from one another? And then we get into one text more closely. This author chose William Kaczynski's It is Time for Entirely Accessible Buildings at UT. So you will have the chance to choose one of your 5 articles from the document set, the 4 that I provided, and then that one additional. One of those you're going to focus on and analyze more closely with respect to logical, as you see here, and ethical and pathetic or emotional appeals. So you see that kind of clear organization in this sample students project 1 report with great quotations to indicate specific moments that the student is analyzing. We have clear reference using some of the defining terms and keywords we have been exploring so far this semester. We have those appearing in the sample report. Exigence, we're talking about the article's purpose, the student writes about. And then finally, we have a very brief kind of conclusory statement here about what a takeaway is for the student. And last but certainly not least, a works cited with the, in your case, 5 sources cited in MLA format. Notice here that there's actually, as there are kind of throughout the essay, if you look closely, there are moments where I think improvements can be made and there are opportunities for revision, including here in the work cited, where the entries are not in alphabetical order. Notice B is coming before A in this sample report, which is not following MLA works cited guidelines, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. So I hope this is helpful for you all to get a sense and to literally just set your eyes upon a model here, and hopefully that makes you encouraged and more confident to move forward into drafting your own Project 1 report. Let's go ahead and head back to the slides now, and I want to briefly discuss, drafting as one of many steps in the writing process. So let's head over there. Okay, so we're back at the slides, and you see on your screen a visual representing the writing process. Now, this is one of, infinite visualizations of a process that is idiosyncratic as every human is, right? So the writing process is going to look different for everyone, in other words, but this is one kind of tripartite way to visualize the steps in the game, if you will, the rules in the game. So we have this cyclical 3-part process: pre-writing, essentially, writing, and post-writing, okay? In the pre-writing phase, that's essentially where we have been so far this semester. We have been researching, reading, we have been, practicing individual skills as far as analyzing logos, pathos, and ethos, outlining and organizing our materials, okay? We have been in the planning or pre-writing stage of the writing process. Of course, the most obvious and most common phase of the writing process is that middle section where you draft, you are writing, you are actually sitting there, crunching along on your machine or writing out by hand. You are trying to think of phrasing, of wording. You are trying to meet that page limit, that word count. You are paragraphing. You are wondering, is this one paragraph or another? You're worrying about your MLA formatting, etc., right? And then, of course, you're also familiar with revision, copy editing, grammar, proofreading, etc. But what I would like to exhort you all to think about and encourage you all to practice, if you don't already, is practice these phases of the writing process as more kind of fluid and organic and not so linear, okay? So what do I mean by that? Well, and also a time crunch can really interrupt some of this processing for you all, I understand. So it's hard to ask you to do this in your college setting when you're so tight on time. But the idea, the best practice, the strategy that I like to follow is to move between and among. Do a little bit of outlining, a little bit of drafting quickly, even when I'm, on transportation or whatever, waiting at the bus stop. I'll pull out my cell phone and I'll record a voice memo. And that is going from brainstorming, getting an idea, moving into drafting, composition, right? Even though that's on my voice memo, that's fine. That still counts. And then when I get home, I move into the revision phase of, copying that text out onto my computer, checking the spelling, etc. And I've done plan, writing, and revision in a 1-hour period on 2 sentences, maybe. And that kind of bite-size method of approaching a large writing task can be really effective and can help you, manage your time, can help you not to procrastinate, right? And really, I want to just tell you to honor those times in your life when you are not sitting in front of the computer, but you're thinking, right? Do y'all know what I'm talking about? When you're in the car on the way to campus, or it happens to me in the shower. You're like washing your hair and you're getting an idea. Oh, that's what I'm going to add to that body paragraph. Or, oh, I need to go do that one more thing from my to-do list, right? You're in those planning processes and sometimes writing your papers in a million other times aside from just when you are parked in front of the computer at your desk. And so I want to honor that in you. And I want to encourage you to be aware and mindful of when that critical thinking and drafting is happening. And the trick is to capture it. So that's how I do, the voice calls. You can, carry around a notebook with you, keep a scrap of paper handy beside your bed if you want to scroll something out really quickly before you fall asleep, because that is drafting too. And to prove my point, let's go and take a quick look at a piece by Anne Lamott from her craft book, Bird by Bird. And this particular section gives us all permission, which I love to read before your first report is due in Rhetoric 306. This section gives us permission to write, and I quote Anne Lamott, shitty first drafts. Let's take a look. Okay, we're back in modules on the Canvas course website, scrolling down, still in Unit 1, and you will see the Bird by Bird reading there at the bottom. When you click ahead, you're going to see a preview of the very short excerpt, and let's see if I can get it to zoom in a little bit for us to show you a better. Let me pause for just 1 second and get this better aligned now that I've shown you where to navigate to it so we can see it more clearly. Okay, so I got that zoomed in a little bit. It's easier to read. And again, you have this in modules under Unit 1. So this is an excerpt about writing shitty first drafts by Anne Lamott from Bird by Bird. Quickly, I'll read through this bio. Born in San Francisco in 1954, Anne Lamott is a graduate of Goucher College in Baltimore and is the author of 6 novels, including Rosie, 1983, Crooked Little Heart, 1997, All New People, 2000, and Blue Shoes, 2002. She's also been the food reviewer for California Magazine, a book reviewer for Mademoiselle, and a regular contributor to Salon's Mothers Who Think. Her nonfiction books include Operating Instructions, a journal of my son's first year, 1993, in which she describes her adventures as a single parent, and Tender Mercies, Some Thoughts on Faith, 1999, in which she charts her journey toward faith in God. In the following selection, taken from Lamott's popular book about writing, Bird by Bird, 1994, she argues for the need to let go and write those, quote, shitty first drafts that lead to clarity and sometimes brilliance in our second and third drafts. And I love to read this on the day in class or the week of our first big writing assignment in Rhetoric 306. So let's go ahead and read just this first paragraph, which I think gives you a good sense of Anne Lamott's humor here and just full permission to do the very popular word vomit method and then go and revise it later, which is what we'll do next week. So if I can indulge you a bit more with my reading voice, I'll read just one more paragraph and then you'll have the remainder of this essay to finish looking at on your own time. So here's Anne Lamott, and I'll move my face out of the way when we get to it. Now, practically even better news than that of short assignments is the idea of shitty first drafts. All good writers write them. This is how they end up with good second drafts and terrific third drafts. People tend to look at successful writers who are getting their books published and maybe even doing well financially and think that they sit down at their desks every morning feeling like $1 million, feeling great about who they are and how much talent they have and what a great story they have to tell. That they take in a few deep breaths, push back their sleeves, roll their necks a few times to get all the cricks out and dive in, typing fully formed passages as fast as a court reporter. But this is just the fantasy of the uninitiated. I know some very great writers you love who write beautifully and have made a great deal of money, and not one of them sits down routinely feeling wildly enthusiastic and confident. Not one of them writes elegant first drafts. All right, one of them does, but we do not like her very much. We do not think that she has a rich inner life or that God likes her or can even stand her. Although when I mentioned this to my priest friend Tom, he said you can safely assume you've created God in your own image when it turns out that God hates all the same people you do. So again, there's Anne Lamott's, wit and humor at play, but I just love and absolutely agree with the moves she's making here in demystifying and breaking down the mythology of what it takes to be a writer. And I don't even mean in the sense that she means here, rich and famous selling books. I mean in the sense we've talked about in this course, that everyone is a writer, that we all must write in our lives, that communication and expression is an essential part of our humanity. And so, how can we communicate best? Does it just come out in a flow kind of inspiration? No. That's typically, again, a fantasy of the uninitiated. Folks who are not well practiced as writers think, oh, maybe I just don't have what it takes. Maybe that person over there, right? They've got it. And the fact is, no. It takes first and second and third drafts. It takes time sitting down at your desk, plodding away on the machine, or at the bus stop, recording into your voice memos on your phone, however that composition happens. But you don't stop after the first draft. That's the trick. Even, and this is what each of you individually only knows best and can assess about your own academic needs. Maybe you write really good first drafts. Maybe you kind of always gotten away with just sitting down, letting it flow out, and turning it in. And I'll encourage you to challenge yourself. Maybe you've never been one to revise much. And take it from me, someone who was perhaps in a situation like that and didn't revise for a really long time in my life as a writer. And all the best things I've ever written have been after thinking I was satisfied and sitting back down again at the desk and trying again. Now, again, this is in an ideal world, and it's very hard to manage all of this with timelines and your deeply busy undergraduate schedules, I understand. But there are a few resources on campus and online that I would like to introduce you to now, if you're not already aware of them, to help during your drafting and writing phase of the process to hook in some of that revision work, as I was talking about earlier today, where we need to have a more kind of cyclical, organic relationship between these different parts of the writing process. So if we can hook in some revising into your first draft, maybe it'll be a little less, as Anne Lamott says, shitty. Okay, let me show you some resources. Okay, so here are some of my favorite tools as a writer to have in your toolkit and to return to time and time again at all the steps in the writing process. So first thing here on the list is some kind of spell check or grammar software. You have it available probably on your word processor, on Microsoft Word, or wherever you're using to create your documents. But I also wanted to refer you to Grammarly.com in case you've never used it before. You can incorporate that onto your Chrome as well, or incorporate into your mail server and have that be spell checking and grammar checking on your machine kind of running all the time. So Grammarly.com you can get for free, and again, it has spell check and grammar suggestions as well. Can I share a little metaphor? I didn't say this last time, did I? I don't think I did. So as we're on this slide about tools, and it occurred to me, maybe a question would be like, I'm already tight on time. Why do I do this extra step? And the metaphor that occurred to my mind in that moment was my dad's craft, my dad's work as a plumber, and the kind of tools that he goes into his daily work, prepared with. And, my dad would never show up to a job without a wrench, right? And thinking about us as writers, on one hand, it's wonderful that you either only need your word processor or you only need pen and paper, but you can come with a more stacked toolkit than that. And therefore, the answer to the question, why go through that extra step is, you're fitting the tool to the need. You've got a grammar and spelling need in your essay. Use that Grammarly.com to help yourself out. Easy bib. You may have been instructed by previous professors or teachers not to use citation generating software. And I got to tell you, as a researcher myself, as somebody whose dissertation had hundreds and hundreds of sources, and from my experience with everyone I know who's ever written a long research project like that, you use citation generating software. That's the truth. You double check them. You double check what's generated automatically and make sure that there's not a glitch, that there is not a punctuation error, etc. But again, use the tools that are available. So EasyBib, the library, has citation generating software that you can just export or email the MLA citation directly to yourself from that library website. So I encourage you to do that. The library website for your reference is lib.utexas.edu. I can show you over there in just a moment. The University Writing Center here on campus at UT is available in person for writing consultations for free. So you can take your paper for this class right now that you are drafting this week into the University Writing Center, have graduate students take a look at it who are familiar with this course, with this content, who are inevitably reading your classmates and other peers on campus taking this Rhetoric 306 course as well. So they will be very familiar and very prepared and ready to receive you over there at the University Writing Center. I think you're allowed to go 3 times per essay, if I remember correctly. But if you would prefer to get help online, the University Writing Center, UWC, has excellent resources available online, including an MLA Works Cited handout, which I'm going to post on the course website and show you in just a moment. And last but not least, the Purdue OWL website is the Purdue University Writing Center's website. And just like our UWC, they provide amazing resources online. And so you can just Google Purdue OWL, and that site will pop up and answer any questions that you have about citation, style, or any other writing specific tips. So let me show you that University Writing Center handout on the course website and make sure that you're all set up for that Works Cited. Okay, we're back on the course website in modules, and I am scrolling down to the bottom of Unit 1, where now you see the MLA 8th edition Works Cited handout. Go ahead and click there, and you will see that wonderful handout from the University Writing Center, giving you all the tips that you need to format your Works Cited there with the title centered in the middle of the page, each entry beginning with the author's last name and then the first name. And there's also a handy chart here, a table to help generate or construct those citations. Again, if you're not using a citation generator online, this gives you the order that is the standard that if you follow this way, you'll always get it right. Author first, title of the source, title of the container, so the magazine, the newspaper in which the article was found, the book perhaps in which the chapter was found. If any of these are not applicable to your source, then you just skip them. So just like in this example, there's no other contributors, so you skip that. Volume number, issue number, publication date, location, etc. So that's a handy, no pun intended, handout there for you from the University Writing Center. Okay, let's go ahead and head back to the slides just to make sure you are all set up for next time. And it looks like you may get out of here a little early today. Okay, folks, so that was a sprint through this week 4 lecture. So just to confirm, we looked through the Project 1 report assignment instructions. We looked at the Project 1 example report on accessibility, which was a different topic, but it gave you a sense of the format and the arrangement to model your upcoming report after. We went ahead and talked about the writing process, encouraged you and validated your thinking that occurred outside, the time when you're actually sitting there at your desk typing away. We got permission from Anne Lamott by reading her excerpt from Bird by Bird to just sit down and get it all out, okay? That's what your job is for this week, is to write that shitty first draft as well as you possibly can, analyzing all 5 of those sources about water quality, and I'm really excited to read those. So for next time, here are your 4 action items. Complete your draft of the Project 1 report. Make sure to list your sources in a works cited. So you'll have 5 sources, 4 that I've provided for you, and that last 5th source that you identified for last week, homework 1.2. That additional source, I would love to invite you all to hop onto the Discord server and share those in the new channel that will be added there for that purpose. This is going to help your classmates to get a sense, if they're still looking perhaps, for what additional sources are out there. And I think it'll also give just everyone a greater sense of the context of this controversy, as when you're able to look around and scroll through that Discord feed and see what other folks are reading and researching and writing about. Of course, as always, reach out to me with any questions, with any concerns. jsapio@utexas.edu is how you get a hold of me. Best of luck on your work and your writing, your planning, your writing, and we will move into revisions next week. So until next time, y'all take care.